in terms of the hybrid model. In situations where we have 900 or more students, if 1 to 5 students or staff contract the disease and are active cases, meaning that they were in school or at a school activity while contagious, we do not need to close. We need to clean and quarantine. Excuse me. For 6 to 10 students and staff in the same building who are not household contacts, in this situation, it's 3 to 5 for low, 3 to 7 days for moderate, or 3 to 7 days for substantial, or considering to alter the schedule to reduce the number of students in the building. If 11 or more students in the same building, then the closed contacts for 14 days, closed schools for 14 days in each of the levels. And so with that being said, if a district makes the decision that even though their county is in substantial for 2 consecutive weeks, and a recommendation is to go fully remote, the district has to have the superintendent as well as the board president file an attestation that they will follow the masking order and that they will follow the guidelines for school closure on an individual school basis. And so that's where we are in terms of this first item. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions on that?
The last statement you made, Dr. Pirano, that would you repeat that, please? Because I didn't understand when they talked about closing schools, it was individual schools within your district or the entire district?
Right. It's for individual schools based upon the caseload that I just went over, like in terms of those numbers based upon the size of the school. So if school A has 900 or more students and they have 11 or more cases, then we would close that building for 14 days, or could be shorter depending on what mitigation efforts that we have, if we can do the contact tracing, if we can clean the building and change our practices. So if we can do all those things, it can be shorter than the 14 days, but it's following those recommendations. And of course, in these situations, we do work with the Pennsylvania Department of Health to come up with the recommendations and what we need to do.
Yes, I had one question, Dr. Priano. The attestation document, and I looked it over, had 2 options. One was for an option of if you have students that are involved in in-person learning, and the other option was for fully remote learning option. I assume we're assigning for the case for some in-person training.
That is accurate, unless the board wants to change directions on that. That is up to you.
So if we were to vote to not have in-person learning from December 1st through the 6th or 7th, whatever the date was on that motion, which one of those options would apply?
So by making the declaration that we are going to continue with in-person learning, we still have the option at any time to go remote. What we're doing is giving, through that attestation, giving confirmation to the Commonwealth that we're going to follow those guidelines. If we, as a whole, decide to go remote because we're in substantial for 2 consecutive weeks, then we still need to sign that document, but just check on remote. However, since if there's a plan to go back in person, which from my understanding, that's the recommendation, then we need to sign that we will be providing in-person learning and follow those guidelines.
So basically, we would need to sign a new document each time we would change from one to the other.
Once we make the declaration, if we make the declaration we're going in person, then we just need to do it one time. We don't need to go back and forth and reapprove it over and over again.
That's what I wanted to understand.
Anybody else have any other questions on the attestation?
Dr. Pirano, this is Scott.
Sure.
how does this affect sports? Because even during the governor's press conference today, he seemed confused about when they should wear masks when they're playing sports. So how does this attestation cover sports as well?
So essentially, in regard to that, and I know what you're talking about in terms of the governor, he, in terms of when he talked about, I believe it was football and swimming, obviously do not have to wear masks. However, other sports may have to wear masks, but ultimately that comes down to advice from the school physician and so forth. And we've received that direction from the school physician in terms of how to handle those athletics. In terms of, because our school physician believes that while competing in the act of competing, that wearing a mask provides some natural health dangers.
Bill, yeah, I thought that I read that the Department of Health, Pennsylvania Department of Health and Education had in some cases, it was very confusing. Some places they exempted school sports and in other cases they did not. But I thought that the order said that all athletes shall wear masks unless they are physically active on the field in situation where the masks would cause a breathing impediment or something.
And that's correct. And our school physician wrote a letter on that and wrote an opinion, and I can send that to you, that essentially anytime in that situation where you have athletes competing, when they're on the sidelines, when they're doing basic drills and doing those types of things, the masks are okay. But when they're actually active competing, when the respiratory rates are really high, that the masks pose a health concern.
And we're following those rules currently.
We are.
Thank you.
I can verify.
And if we don't approve this, then or sign this, we are basically forced to go online.
That is accurate. If we do not sign this, if it's not signed, submitted, and posted on our website, essentially submitted to PD by November 30th at 5 p.m., then we are not able to reopen on December 1st and provide in-person learning. Or when we come back on December 7th, should you approve the second agenda item tonight.
Anybody else have any questions on that? No one? Okay, Ms. Wolf. We need a roll call vote on public school attestation.
Voting on the first one or the second one?
Yes,
Okay,
Herb,
thank you.
it's the first one, Bill.
Herb, we need a motion and a second first.
Okay, I just wanted to,
So moved.
Second, Scott.
Who made the motion?
Greg Nevin.
Okay, Greg, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call vote.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Moderator,
I'm for having the kids go back to school, so if that means a yes, then that's a yes.
this is for the attestation.
Yes,
Yes,
Mr. Nevin,
Yes.
Mr. Kozlowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Tower,
Yes.
Mr. Yant,
yes,
Mrs. Willeen,
Yes.
Mr. Weinman,
Yes.
Mr. Yingling.
yes,
Motion carries 9-0.
thank you, Ms. Wolf. Okay, second agenda item is synchronous online instructional model for the week following Thanksgiving. Dr. Prano, you want to go over that one?
So regardless of what health agency or health group you listen to, or a governmental agency, there is a prediction that there will be a high number of positive cases following the Thanksgiving break. People are going to move on with their lives. They're going to have get-togethers. They're going to have gatherings. People are going to travel. when I went over the case numbers, and you see that those thresholds are very low. Coming off the Thanksgiving holiday, there's a large chance, given the predictions, that we could have a large number of students and staff coming off that holiday who may have had exposure to COVID-19. So therefore, this motion involves taking a proactive approach by moving for the 4 days after the Thanksgiving break, the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, to a full remote but synchronous online instructional model that week. This is different than what we experienced last spring. One, there's an end to it. Last spring, there seemed like there was never going to be an end to it. And the instruction was asynchronous, which means it wasn't live. This involves live instruction with teachers teaching students using Schoology as well as Zoom as our online platform, as well as the various other digital tools that you purchased to make that possible. And so students would learn synchronously online from December 1st through December 4th. To be quite honest with you, at that point, coming back into the school environment on December 7th, we wouldn't really have any positive cases because we would not have been in school. That provides us time to, during the course of that week, and provides families and staff and students who are at home to be notified should they have been a close contact with anyone with COVID, and 10 days to begin showing symptoms should that happen. And so based upon that week, that gives us a time proactively, one, to ensure the safety of everyone in the building and reduce the likelihood of exposure, but as well to see the results of that Thanksgiving holiday in a way that's proactive and to prevent the substantial increase in active cases from entering our buses as well as our classrooms. As well, given the holiday and where people will be and the number of people that people will be with, we lack the adequate staff to be able to do the contact tracing, not only in school, but outside of school. And so when you look at the reasons why you have to shut down a building, it's that to provide time to do contact tracing or a high number of exposures. And so our thought on this is to provide a brief period of remote learning in an effort to help prevent a longer period of remote learning, which, as you can see, could be 14 days or more, because over that 14 days, if you continue to add cases into the situation, that makes the whole situation more complex. And so our hope is that those 4 days can reduce the total number of remote learning days and increase the in-person learning days by being proactive, by keeping the cases out of the school at a time when we expect cases to spike from the community. And when you look at what we've dealt with here, our cases that we've had, and right now we have 7 active cases, but almost all cases that we've experienced have had community spread. Some community activities, as well as parties, get-togethers, and Halloween parties, have resulted in that increased number of cases. And we know that Thanksgiving is the largest travel day or get-together day of the year. So at that point, that's the recommendation.
All right. Anybody have any questions on synchronous online instruction for the week after Thanksgiving?
Bill, yeah, yes, I do.
Yes, Bill.
I understand exactly what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it, but I don't have much faith in the fact that that's going to work. My concerns are twofold. Number one, many of these young people, as has been demonstrated in a lot of things, are asymptomatic, And if that is the case, then they really won't show much in the 4 days out that they're off. And when they come back to school, you may well expect that you'll see them, you'll see the effects of that. The second concern I have is that I'm really concerned that this turning a switch between in-person and remote back and forth is more harmful than either staying in person and living with the consequences, or going to full remote and living with those consequences. So those, I haven't decided to vote no, but those are very concerning to me. And if I were to have been given an option, or the option were available, I would recommend that we close until the day after New Year's. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. It's
Herb,
really not
this is-
4 days off, Bill. It's actually going to be closer to 10. If I count the days right, from Thanksgiving until the Monday, December 7th.
That's correct, Herb. And then we're going to come back to school, and we're going to go for 10 days, and then we're going to go off for the Christmas holiday, and we're going to be gone for however many days and then come back. This is what I'm concerned with on the learning side, is the fact that the kids are switching back and forth. And I don't think they're getting much education on either side when that's occurring. That's my concern. Thank you.
Okay.
President Yingling.
Any comments?
I do. Greg Nevin.
Yes, Greg.
So help me to understand, the real impact, and I appreciate, respect Mr. Yant's comments, and I echo concerns about disrupting our educational models that we have in place now. I can offer that, I read the 8 letters that we had in public comments. I know that 7 of those 8 said, don't, I'm wildly paraphrasing, but don't upset the apple cart, continue to do what you're doing, stay the course. And 1 who was pretty vehement about us not coming back to brick and mortar. And so I understand some of the concerns there. As regards a disruption in the educational model, I really feel it's important to break this down to exactly what we're talking about. It is 4 instructional days. For the 10% of our student population who is going to school 100% online remote learning today, there will be no change whatsoever in the instructional delivery to those kids, 1 out of 10. To the high school kids who are either 10% of them in the online, the other 1,000 kids who are using a hybrid model, because that's what we had to do at the high school, they will have 2 days that would have been brick and mortar that are now going to be online. They'd have had 2 online days anyway. So it's not 4 days of some different instructional model to them. And as a matter of fact, the high school kids are accustomed to online learning, because 50% of their class time is spent in exactly that way this past Friday and today, for that matter. That's what they've been used to since the beginning of the year. So instead of having their 2 brick and mortar days and 2 online days, they're going to have 4 online days that week. Without question, having a disruption in a parent's routine when they've been used to being able to work and have their kids in the buildings. A number of the letters referenced that. I not only understand and sympathize, I empathize, having been a single dad with 3 kids at one point in 3 different buildings, and family 800 miles away, and I had to make it work when there was a snow day, when somebody had a fever, when somebody had pink eye. The fact of the matter is that things do occur in our lives, which disrupt our schedules. This thing happens to be a global pandemic that we are trying to mitigate the impact of, so that we don't have to shut down entirely there are a number of school districts who are going to close completely. We're trying to take these 4 days to hit the pause button and alter our delivery to online instruction at 100% for those 4 days so that we have a chance to get past an incubation period and give kids an opportunity to come back to our schools December 7th. That, as I understand it, is what we're talking about doing.
Exactly right. And I'll be quite honest with you, with all the schools around us, I think we're very fortunate. We've gone as long as we have without any disruption to our school district. Penn Trafford, Plumboro, Gateway, Norwin, all of those schools have had major problems. Latrobe, Jeanette. We've been very fortunate. We have not had one day because we've done what we were supposed to do when we were supposed to do it. We social distance, we made sure everybody had masks. We did what the CDC guidelines instructed us to do, and it paid off.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a statement.
Okay, Jane, let me get Jane first, Paul. Go ahead, Jane.
I guess I just wonder then if we've been doing the things that we say have kept us safe, which is the social distancing and the masks, then do we don't feel that that would be adequate to get us through if they came back on the 1st then? Or
We don't know, we have no idea what these, they're gonna be off for 3-4 days and be with groups of people that we have no idea if they're gonna be coming back with COVID. That's the problem.
no, I get that, but if we're already mandating they have to wear the masks and distance, to me it's not an either or. You're actually doubling up on your precautions. It's, I'm not saying that we have to, but that's just something I guess I'm wondering. You're saying that that's what's kept us safe by doing those things, but now we need to not have classroom instruction, so that adds even a 3rd layer, I guess.
Okay. Paul?
Yes, many of the members of the board have discussed the fact that we have a pandemic going on in the area served by Franklin Regional School District. The positivity rate has been between or above 20%, or between 20 and 25%. And we've been designated a substantial 5 out of the last 6 weeks. So clearly we've got a pandemic going on in Westmoreland County. We have had positive cases, both students and staff within our schools, and the Pennsylvania Department of Public Health and Department of Public Education recommends a fully remote learning model for school districts in counties with substantial. However, that's all been covered. What I wanted to add to the discussion was I'm worried about teachers. Dr. Priano talked about staff trying to have enough people available to do contact tracing. If you have too many contacts, you got to figure out and trace. If you were to contract the disease,
We don't have it set up.
unable to teach a class, that class may have to be canceled,
We got here quickly.
particularly if you have a lack of substitute teachers, which we have. So given the Thanksgiving rush, I think all this means we should take this, December 1st to December 4th time away, and that would be very valuable to us. And then we can reassess during that week where we are.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Ed?
Herb, first of all, I'd like to do a little change of pace here and give a shout out to all the families in this community. As we've been hearing, one of the reasons why our community is quite low in comparison to all the other school districts around here is I believe that our parents and families have stepped up to the plate to do what they needed to do to try to safeguard the whole community and the kids. I also believe that the kids need to continue to do the mask because that's the right thing to do, especially when you're in close quarters. I also do believe that the families, what you saw today in the comments, I probably had well over 20 people, families and students, come up to me pretty much begging me to let things keep on keeping on because they've been doing such a good job in comparison to so many other areas around us. I heard loud and clear from parents, like what Greg referenced about, being a single parent and all the pitfalls of being a single parent and all the hoops you got to try to jump through. Today, with so many of the families that are working, in many cases, moms and dads, and if you have little children that are going to be stuck at home, now you're throwing another curveball, which we really haven't talked about too much. How did the people deal with those situations? In many cases, if you don't have, like Greg was referencing, he had no family close by. Where do these children go that are not in the high school caliber where they could be left, hopefully alone and not being attended by an adult? I think what you're talking is trying to throw them into daycares. And when you get involved there, good Lord, who knows what kind of a hodgepodge of kids that you have going in there, whether they've been checked, whether people cared or not. And you really start to run a real risk, I believe, of coming into some other stuff that maybe normally you would not have had. Our school environment is, this is an attestament to all of the people, the personnel, the teachers, everybody stepping up to the plate and doing double duty. But the numbers also reflect that. And that environment is a controlled environment for these students. The other part of it is the mental part of it for some of these kids that just don't do very well behind a computer screen. And what kind of an impact are we going to have on that? So all that being said, I think we need to be very careful with what we do. There's no question that the COVID is real and it's out there. But it's also been one where we've been doing a wonderful job as a school district with what we've been doing. So that's just a point that I wanted to make, that there's a lot of factors to look at when we make a decision of what to do for these kids.
Okay, Mark.
Thank you.
Mark.
Thank you. I wanted to just comment a little bit on something that to answer a little bit of follow-up to what Mrs. Tower was asking about, and some of the things that I wrestled with what Mr. Moderator was talking about also, and some of the other comments and concerns. When I was first looking at some of what has made our plan a success. A lot of the parent comments that we've seen, a lot of the community, obviously the overwhelming community support has been for us to keep in school model. That's why we've worked so hard this summer. The administration has worked so hard this summer. The board has supported that effort for us. And that's why we worked so hard to support the administration to come up with options for parents so that everybody had an option that they were comfortable with their needs. We've worked continuously through the year to provide as many options as we can. Going into the holidays is where we have to make these decisions now because the situation is critical. The numbers of COVID are going way up. We're going into the biggest travel holiday of the year. We have to look at this and determine, is this a certain circumstance where we have to make a decision in order to remain successful? So if you look at what has made our health and safety plan successful so far, to what you were asking, Ms. Tower, it has been the masks. It has been the fact that the students have been cooperative. The teachers have been very good about making sure that students are complying with those things. The administration has worked very hard to put in real safety protocols. They haven't cheated. They haven't skimped on anything. Parents have really tried to cooperate when it comes to keeping their kids home when they had illnesses. They've cooperated for the most part with contact tracing and tried to assist with things. That is what's made it successful. But one of the other major things that's made it successful is that we have had a nursing staff that was trained and has been able to assist the Department of Health with the contact tracing. We have had a custodial staff that has been very capable, and fortunately, over the past couple of years, Mr. Heck has ordered and requested the Bactronics system that has allowed them to effectively and efficiently clean and deep clean and sanitize quickly so that we can keep these schools open. That has been a critical component to us keeping the schools open in some of these instances where we've had cases come up and positive cases come up. One of the big concerns I have is that there's no doubt, if you look at any of the state sites, the instance of active cases is almost looks like a logarithmic curve going up right now. There's, it's very unlikely that we're going to have numbers go down over the Thanksgiving period. My concern is that if we overwhelm our ability to assist the state with contact tracing, then we lose our ability to keep up with the cleaning, keep up with the contact tracing. Right now, we have an opportunity to stay ahead of it. And with the 4 days, canceling the in class for 4 days and just going fully remote for 4 days, we're giving parents the time to plan right now. And we have a defined period of time that they're out for 4 days. That covers 11 days off of school. You're going to be 90% of people who have exposure are going to show symptoms within that period of time. That will put us well within the limits of having a crisis post-holiday, from post-holiday exposure. That will allow us to hopefully not be overwhelmed. And that, because then the alternative is, if we have those kids return within 4 to 5 days and start showing symptoms after they've been on the bus, after they've been all through the school, and we overwhelm our ability to do the things that's made us successful through the contact tracing, or if parents are more hesitant to be cooperative because they haven't been following the state mandates that are out there, and then they have to admit that they were traveling or they've seen people out of state, which was against the government, the governor's protocols, you would have to admit that now. And maybe they don't want to be in that situation, so they're more hesitant than they were to cooperate with the contact tracing. Whatever it may be, it's going to put us in a bad situation. Then all of a sudden, we're not giving people a week to plan. You have an immediate closure for an indefinite amount of time. So those same people that still have the same childcare problems will suddenly have to find that same type of childcare for an indefinite amount of time with no notice. Now we at least give you an amount of notice for a defined amount of time. It's not perfect, it's not great. I have 3 children that are going to be remote learning. I value them being in school. They're all going to school 5 days right now. And I dread them being home for the week following Thanksgiving. It's not perfect and I don't like it, but the overarching picture for me is that it's taking a step back to continue forward and keep us open longer, and keep us safe, and keep our health and safety plan successful for the long term. That's the way I look at it. I completely respect Mr. Mitterator's points, and I understand those, and I understand the parents' points and concerns because I share them myself. I struggle with those same things. It's very difficult, and I understand that this decision is very difficult. It's difficult for all of us to make. So just understand that. Anyone who criticizes or has harsh words for anything that we're doing here, we all want online learning. We all want what's best for the kids. We all want it to be safe. So we're doing our best to come up with the best plan, regardless of our decision here, to find a way to get through this holiday period. Parents, work with us, be honest about contact tracing, be honest and be responsible in the community as best you can. And that will help us all get through this and stay in school as best we can. That's all I have for that.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody else have any comments? Debbie, do you have any?
Herb, this is Scott.
Yes, Scott.
We started out this whole pandemic with 14 days to flatten the curve. And that's where I'm concerned, that we're going to do these 4 days and then we're going to say, oh, well, we should probably extend it a little more, and then a little more, and then a little more. And then it leads to, we're into February. FR spent over $1 million this year to give parents options such as online, hybrid, face-to-face, so the kids can be educated in the best way the parents see fit, not the way government sees fit. And we've given these options to the parents. And then seeing the public comments, the parents want their kids in school. These are the same parents that pay the taxes to support the school's needs, such as staff salaries and new buildings. And they overwhelmingly choose to put their kids in the physical buildings. I'll just end with that if we do vote to go to the online option for those 4 days, if any parent feels the education is slipping, please email the building principals, because the experience that some students had in the spring cannot happen again. This brief online time period should not be looked at as an extended Thanksgiving break. And I'm just happy to see that sports will continue so the kids still get to see and interact with their friends over that time period.
Thank you. Debbie, do you have anything?
Yes, sir.
I'm in agreement with Scott, and I support the continuation of the current model and not moving to an online model.
Okay. All right, anybody else have any comments?
I would like to add one thing, if I might. This is Greg.
Yes.
My motivation, without question, is to make it possible for us to have brick and mortar instruction. That is my preference. And if I had kids in the district who were able to go 5 days a week, the twins are in the high school and they are going 2 days a week in the hybrid model. But if I had kids that could go 5 days a week, that would be my preference, without question. I guess my concern here is, let's say that I am one of those parents that chose to do brick and mortar because I think that's where my kids should be. And we gave you the option and you took that option, and you're very clear, at least in the letters and the comments that I hear, you're very clear that that's where you want to be. If that's the case, I truly believe that shutting down for an incubation period during a time that we're anticipating a spike is the best way to get there. I think hitting that pause button is the best way to get there. You know, to Mr. Wyman's point about the 14 days to flatten the curve, we were, as a nation, as a planet, really naive about what was coming. We're no longer naive, and we are able to reasonably predict that there is going to be a spike that's going to happen in over the next 72 hours or so. That when people come into town tomorrow or travel tomorrow, and then they come back into town, when people get together for Thanksgiving, and it's going to happen, no matter how, doesn't matter that we've dropped our numbers from 20 to 5. A lot of people won't. And there are going to be people who are just not going to use good judgment. And we're going to get spikes. And my sincere fear is if we come back on the 1st and we have 5 kids in a building, now that parent who didn't know how they were going to cover 4 days of online instruction has to cover 14 days, has to cover 2 weeks worth. And then how do we reopen? I'm really afraid of the numbers spiking inside of the building so that we're forced to shut down and we end up with more online instruction than we would with this. So that's it. I'll shut up.
All right, thank you, Greg. Anybody else? Okay. That's all the comments from the board. I need a motion for synchronous online instructional model for the week following Thanksgiving.
So moved, Nevin.
Moved by Nevin, second, Yan.
Oh, yeah.
Moved by Nevin, seconded by Bill Yan. Ms. Wolf, roll call vote.
Mr. Shiner,
Yes.
Mr. Moderator,
No.
Mr. Nevin,
Yes.
Mr. Kozlowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Tower,
Yes,
Mr. Gant,
Yes.
Mrs. Woolene,
No,
Mr. Wyman,
No.
Mr. Yingling.
Yes,
Motion carries 6-3.
6-3. Thank you, everybody. Before we adjourn, hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving. Stay
So
safe,
moved.
stay healthy.
Thank
Anybody
you.
have any comments? Need a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Shiner.
Second, moderator.
Okay, everybody have a great holiday. See you in December.
thank
Stay
you.
safe, everyone.
Good night.